Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Transformation of the Thoughts podcast. Today we have Mr. Viral Patel with us, who is the coordinator of Shanti Kunja's Yagya Research Center. We will be discussing the benefits of doing Yagya for one's mental health. So my first question for you is, how can external factors influence internal factors that cause an imbalance in our mental and emotional well-being?
Thank you, Kanika. When we talk about our health, we have to understand that there are two factors that can play important role in our health. First is the internal factor, and second is the external factor. We all are aware of external factors that can play a role in our life. External factors can be our polluted air, polluted water, polluted food. And internal factors are the one that are our negative thoughts, our negative emotions, our collective negative thoughts, our collective negative emotions. Those play an important role in our life, in our emotional and mental health being. So let me tell you one thing, that when there are factors in certain scenario, so in scarcity of food, in scarcity of uh, if there are situations where external factors is affecting one person, and there are situations the same factors is not affecting the another person, so external factors has an impact on our inner health. But we normally take out the way that all the scenario in the life, we always try to blame to our external things to our internal well-being, but it is not like that. uh, in the same scenario, the one person is being affected and one person is not being affected. So our internal factors play a very important role in science. When external factors affects our inner process is called psychosomatic diseases, and our internal factors when affect our health, it's called somatopsychic diseases. So uh, these are the two things that we have to understand, they play important role in our life.
So what is Yagya therapy?
So Yagya therapy, it's an ancient herbal inhalation therapy, and that is a therapy that people are now coming to know. But once upon a time in India, when there was a Vedic time, then when there was a time of Vedic culture, at that time the mature therapy was Yagya therapy, and people used to treat themselves for all the kind of diseases through Yagya. At that time, Ayurveda was secondary and Yagya therapy was a primary. And this Yagya therapy includes 5 factors, and that I can talk you in detail later on. But in general, Yagya therapy uh, affects 3 level to our body. First is a physical level, second is a mental level, and third is the emotional level. So physical level, all our physiological changes. When we put herbs into the fire, all the herbs that gets vaporized, that can gives us a physiological benefit. The mantra that we use in yagya, and the chanting, the prayers, that can gives us a mental health benefit. And the third is the emotional health benefit, that the combination, the energy is generated through the yagya, through the emotions and the feelings and the belief, and that energy gives us the advantage of our emotional well-being. The first question that you have asked about internal and external factors, and we are talking about yagya therapy that is affected with these 3 factors. We have to see that today the problem of all the diseases is arising through our stress level, through our negative emotions. And then scientists also believe, and they have tested and they have proved that when our stress is high, when our negative emotions is high, it can affect our hormonal balance, and that hormonal balance uh, is imbalanced, and negative hormones released that affects our physical health. So the medicines that we take, they can actually give advantage to our physical body. But what about our stress and our negative emotions? So to fight that, we need a therapy, we need an approach, we need an alternative methods that can actually address that. So the thoughts and emotions are at a subtle level, so we need to have things that can go to that level. So how that works, we can talk that later on. But yagya therapy is the process, is a Vedic therapy that can affects our health at three levels: physical, mental, and emotional. Yeah.
So, can you talk more about the 5 factors that go into Yagya therapy?
Okay. So that's a very good question, that how Yagya therapy works. So we have to understand scientifically whether whatever used in Vedic time, how it can give us a therapeutic advantage in today's time. So to understand that, we have to take it into 5 dimensions. So Yagya is a fire ritual, and that fire rituals are present in the various cultures since long time. In India, it's Yagya since Vedic time. It's called as Yagya, Homa, Yajan, Yajna. So these are the different terminologies people use. But is there? There's a fire ritual that's present in Indian culture. That also present in various other cultures. When we go to Iran, in Zoroastrian, there is still present called as a yasna. In old days Chinese or Buddhist religion, it's called as a goma. So it was a homa. It were converted into goma due to the with the time travel. So it's there. It's in North. It's Red Indian used to have in America the fire ritual. The Native Americans and even the South America area also have the culture civilizations. They used to have fire rituals. So it is there, and it has been helping civilization since ages. What happen is, in when we do this kind of fire ritual, it has 5 factors. Especially in yagya, there are 5 factors. First is a herb that we used in it. Second is mantra that we used in it. Third is the communication with the fire. Fourth is uh, the emotions that person use, and the fifth is the sun energy. So how do we synchronize with the sun? I'll talk briefly one by one for each one. So for the herbs, that we know that herbs gives us a therapeutic advantage and stuff, but when we take it orally, they get digested by our liver. Our liver metabolize that the drug, any drug, if there is herbal or it's a tablet or medicine. So very little go as a bioavailability in the blood. When we take through the nasal, like in asthma, like in congestion, where we want an immediate relief, the herbal, the air goes, the drug taken through the pulmonary route is very effective. So when we take, when we put herbs into the fire, that gets vaporized because the temperature is so high, more than 600 degrees centigrade, that we have tested out at our research center here. So it's once we put into it, it directly gets into the gaseous form. Liquid and gaseous form mostly goes into the gaseous form, and that it's so subtle. It's in the form of gas, so can be easily absorbed by our blood. So the herbs that we take orally, it's better to take it as a nasal. And there are researches they have shared. Showed that in Middle East, there is one research paper in 2007 they have published in Ethnopharmacology, and they have showed that there are 50 countries they use herbal inhalation as therapy. So it's a very established component. So that is one advantage. When we do yagya therapy, we put specific herb into the yagya for the specific disease. For example, we have made here, there are 30 types of herbal formulations we have made after 40 years of research. So herbal mixture for cancer, herbal mixture for mental disease, herbal mixture for diabetes, herbal mixture for arthritis, like that. We put that disease specific, and then disease specific gaseous forms gives an advantage. That is the first factor how yagya therapy works. The second factor was mantra. So we know the mantra is a sound energy. Sound energy affects our pituitary pineal gland, and then it can release the good hormone. It can affect our endocrine glands. So that is one advantage. There are many studies they have showed that how the mantra affects our mental health and emotional health. So that is that. So we use mantra. The third is the fire. Fire is a very important aspect because now we are going more subtle. Mantra is more subtle than the herb, and fire is more subtle than the mantra, because through the fire we can communicate with our surrounding, with our ecological surrounding, with our nature, with our family, the emotional cloud that exists around us. We can more get connected to them. The more we get connected to the fire, that's a very spiritual aspect, and that's why Vedas, the first mantra is on fire god. But what, let me tell you scientifically what it can give an advantage. So when we sit next to the fire and we give the sacrifice to the fire, our eye contact happens to the fire. What happen is, uh, normally we live in our thoughts. That's called ideosphere. So what happens during that ideosphere? Sometimes in events, in external events in life, that can affect us so badly. So we are not able to come out of it. Sometimes it takes weeks. Sometimes it takes months. And what happens when we sit next to the fire? Our eye contact happens to the fire, and retina is the brain tissue. So what happens is the fires blaze the retina, and that retina is the highest electric current passing tissue that gives the current to the pineal gland just behind our between two eyes, and that pineal gland actually controls our uh, affects the pituitary gland, hypothalamus axis gland, and then it releases our hormones, and the good hormones comes out. So Tratak is another method in yoga that people try that also works with the same mechanism. So once we sit next to the fire, it gives an advantage of, it's kind of reprogramming of our pineal pituitary gland, our brain hormonal system. Okay. The second advantage with the fire is it's the heat. So it's a heat therapy. So when we sit next to the heat, our skin pores gets open through the skin, the heat, and the more we breathe 40% through the skin and 60% through the lung. So the more skin pores are open, the perspiration, the metabolic waste, the chemical waste of the body that comes out to the skins, and the gaseous forms of the herbs of the yagya fumes that goes inside. So that's the third advantage. So now we go to the next one, that is emotions. So the person who participates in emotions play a very important role, because we have to connect through our emotions, through our surroundings. We are not alone in the ecosystem. There are birds, there are animals, there are family members, there are friends, there is a society, there is a plants, uh, there are subtle environment is there also. As per the scriptures, we have a perfect synchrony with this cloud. So the more we pure, the more our emotions are pure, the benefits of the yajna comes more, because we get connect to our surroundings and our own ourself. The process of yajna actually synchronize our inner self with the outer self, outer surrounding. So those things are balanced. So that's the fourth dimension. The fifth is very important, because that is the sun, synchronization with the sun. uh, Yagya therapy is a very subtle therapy. So through the herbs, through the mantra, through the fire, and through our emotions, the fifth factor is the one that connects all these five. That is a connection with the sun. Yagya we perform in the morning and in the evening. There is a specific reason why we perform in the morning and we perform in the evening, because uh, we have a biological clock. So that is a pituitary pineal gland. It's our biological clock. When we go to sleep around 9 p.m., everybody goes to sleep. Around 4 p.m., the hormones comes out of melatonin starts releasing. That is the signal given by a pineal gland. That is just like our light sensor in our brain that releases the or gives the signal to pituitary, and they releases the hormones of melatonin. So that goes to the highest level, and we get the sleep. That comes down around 2 a.m. It comes down, and we starts waking up. So that cycle is naturally balanced cycle. And what happen is, when we have that yagya, we actually connects ourselves with the sun, and circadian cycles our gets reset, because we follow the routine of morning and evening just like birds. just like animals. So our routine gets balanced. So that is the one advantage with the sun therapy. There was a research in astrobiology in 2011. They have published that when there is a cycle of sun, every 11 year, sun gets very hyperactivated. And at that time, the uh, predispositions to the cancer, to the disease in the mass, predispositions to the mass movements, the revolutions, the destructions, earthquakes, this kind of stuff increased with the sun cycle. So the human is actually connected with the sun. The mass is connected with the sun because we know Earth came out of the sun during the evolution. So we and everything on the earth is out of the earth. So our existence is also made out of the earth. So the point is we have to get connected in a perfect synchrony and harmony. That's why our biological clocks get connected and we get a good hormones coming out into the body. And this there are researches being conducted on the same. Scientists are now focusing on this biological clock more and doing researches to figure it out. So in Yagya therapy, we actually synchronize all our energy through this four factor with the sun surrounding in the morning and evening. And that's why in the Yagya we use Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra is the mantra for rising sun, the Savita, the deity Savita. So that is the reason when we perform Yagya in the morning and in the evening, our whole life cycle has to be synchronized with the sun. So these are the five factors. This is how Yagya therapy works.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Great explanation. That was really helpful. So in terms of everything you've talked about and like the 5 dimensions of Yagya therapy, what are some real life results that you've seen in people around you or just like in general from Yagya therapy?
Okay. So Yagya therapy, we have done researches on Yagya therapy since last more than 40 years. In 1978, we started working on it. Very 79, we started working on it very systematically, and we have a research center called Brahmvarchas Research Center, and it has now developed into an university, Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya. Over here, we have a research center called Yagya Center for Yagya Research, which I'm the coordinator of it, and we are here testing out on different health aspects of Yagya therapy. So we have 7 dissertations, PhD dissertations done on the same, and we have a research journal for the same. And summarily, I can say that we have tested on hypothyroid patients, diabetes patients, cancer patients, epilepsy patients, mental disease patients, and we have got a very miraculous results in a sense because we have patients coming to us who are not getting allopathic advantage and they want to try out something alternative, traditional methods, and those patients comes and we provided the therapeutic advantage to those patients who have no medicines available. We have I would like to, since we have talked more about mental health, this podcast is about mental health, and I would talk 2 examples of our outcomes which are for the mental health and one for a cancer patient. So we have an epileptic patient who was suffered from 2012 to 2015, has an episode and average 8 episodes per year. And we have published this paper, and he was taking epileptic drugs. And still along with drug, he still had 8 episodes a year. It was beyond control. And that patient tried our therapy for 3 months and continued it. Within 2 months, he has no episodes. Only 1 or 2 episodes came in the night during the sleep, and that episodes reduced to none till 3 years. We followed to the patients and we published that paper. So there was one more patient who has the episodes since 11 years and had no advantage with other remedies medicines. That patient also got an advantage, and his episodes was eradicated. Because for mental diseases, Yagya therapy is very, very focused, because mental diseases has an origin of our thoughts and emotions playing a role in mental disease. And through the mantra, Yagya, fire, biological sun setting, that gives an advantage of reprogramming our whole software. So hardware we can manipulate with the modern drugs, but what about the software? And we have to have a therapeutic system that can affect our inner software. So those herbal combinations for mental diseases are well known. Uh, Brahmi, Shanpushpi, Shatavar, those kind of Jyotishmati, those kind of herbs that are traditionally time tested, used for mental diseases, and that's what we use here. We have done we have patients on depression, anxiety, stress, mania, and those kind of patients have tremendously got advantage, and we have done one dissertation for the same. Those publications we have done. One study where we have done HIV patients whose inferiority complex and insecurity complex was also removed with the same. So was also reduced with the same Yagya therapy. Lastly, I would like to add, in the cancer patients, our therapy worked like a very good alternative method, because we use herbs. Those are in vitro, we have tested, those have anti-cancer potential. They reduce the that has killed IC 57.8 microgram for breast cancer cell line in vitro. Our patients are taking clinically since last 15 years, and they are reported as a tremendous benefit. So physically, this therapy is helping cancer patient to reduce the tumor. Emotionally, it is strengthening their inner thing. Hormonally, it is giving their balance. And then this therapy also cleans the surrounding antibacterial environment, because the herbs that we use, that in 1 hour it reduces 90% of the pathological bacteria in surroundings, and in 24 hours it reduces all the pathological bacteria around the surrounding in the air. So cancer patients needs a sterile environment also while going through the chemo. So the point is, this therapy is not a novel therapy, it's an old therapy. We have published our research journal, Interdisciplinary Journal of Yagya Research, and dissertations we have done, and we are working on it. And there are people in India taking it as this therapy in a mass. People are coming more and more, and they are getting aware of this therapy. And I'm sure in America, the effort that you are trying, this podcast is trying, people will come to know about the word of this Yagya therapy, and specifically for mental health. We don't need a special herbs when we perform in the home. We just have to perform a Yagya, and that Yagya with all the mantras and emotions and balancing our life, purity of life, along with the sun cycle, morning and evening. This therapy can benefit to any patient who's suffering from mental ailments. So yeah, I think those are the brief talk about our evidences.
Yeah, hopefully this convinces more people to do yagya, because it has so many not only spiritual but mental and physical impacts to our well-being. And given the examples that you mentioned, we see these real life implements, and I think that should be more convincing than anything else we've talked about. Like, people want hardcore proof. So now that there is so much research and dissertations that are being done, I think people should be more convinced to perform these regularly. Not only and we shouldn't only do it for the purposes of if we have disease or if we're not mentally or emotionally well. We should do it on a regular basis to keep that homeostasis. So thank you again, uncles, for coming and talking about it. It's very important that we have this discussion so people can realize the benefits and impacts of Yagya therapy.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
Thank you.